with 2 million sell, a bright smile appears on the older man's face, and he asks Lennox to wait a moment. On the other hand, with a lying head on the bar table, Jenny seems lost in her thoughts, prompting his bartender grandpa to ponder if she is still thinking about the same thing about Van. Abruptly lifting her head, she questions whether Van believes Dylan failed to discern the dissimilarity between his electricity and ice magic. She assumes that Van isn't merely a typical lightning mage and questions why he concealed that aspect of himself, prompting the bartender to speculate whether Jenny might be envious. She praises Van, acknowledging his skills and pleasing personality, and asks her grandpa if he has encountered a mage as understanding as Van before. The bartender offers her a drink, acknowledging her thoughts, but advises her not to rush things. He explains that their current option is to offer Van good work, indicating they should focus on providing him with opportunities. She concurs and asks if she should recommend him to work coming in from companies, to which the bartender wonders if Van will consider it after this last incident. Meanwhile, Jenny contemplates that she wouldn't be surprised if he were to go into shock whenever he sees a reptile after that. The bartender suggests it would be better to recommend him work related to mercenaries or gangs. However, Jenny abruptly turns on her laptop, expressing her disinterest in gangs, and asserts that she'll look for mercenary jobs, considering them preferable. She assumes that Van won't oppose it since he has worked with Dylan, a mercenary. She believes that the mercenary office would welcome a mage with open arms, because it is a plus to them to have a mage since it's excellent for networking. However, the bartender seems unimpressed by her decision and reminds her twice that he is helping her business at Kaiser's request. While acknowledging Jenny's intelligence and perceptiveness, he advises her to remember that she tends to be too impatient sometimes. Nonetheless, Jenny doesn't take his advice seriously and interrupts him with a hand gesture, signaling him to stop blabbing. On the contrary, the orchard owner offers Lennox a box of Superior Viper Cached C107 and explains its benefits, stating that it grants 6 hours of physical reinforcement with mana and stamina activation. However, he emphasizes that using it may lead to headaches, spasms, vomiting, and a low possibility of vomiting blood, listing these as some of the side effects. Despite these potential side effects, he regards it as a remarkable item and asks for Lennox's opinion. The protagonist ponders if that's the only side effect, to which the older man retorts that among the items worth 2 million sell, Cached C107 has the most negligible side effects. He further asserts that the side effects can be lessened, which raises the cost tremendously. He emphasizes that he doesn't sell less than 10 at once, so he must keep that in mind. Lennox closely examines the new Viper and notices it has a different filter. The Viper expert informs him that it's a recent model operated with mana instead of a button. This revelation startles the protagonist, and he anxiously remarks that it must be similar to the Calvin and Cubs products, which infuriates the older man. He ferociously rebukes Lennox for comparing his product to a lowly item like that. He vehemently asserts that his products are all made from premium natural herbs, unlike Calvin and Cubs' cheap and chemically loaded items. His confidence persuades Lennox, and he purchases the pack of new model Vipers. As he turns around, the orchard owner casually invites him to come again. Conversely, the leader of Krimger mercenary group, Dre Krimger, seems frustrated to receive resignation letters from 2 mages whom he barely managed to hire this quarter. Meanwhile, the mercenary group's Wyan casually reminds Dre that he had previously advised him to be more sociable, which only enrages him further. He erupts, asserting that Wyan is fully aware he didn't assign the mages any complex tasks. Their sole responsibility was to maintain their position for the quarter while catering to every demand those individuals required. Kithel interjects, implying that it was too challenging for those fragile, intellectually inclined individuals. Meanwhile, Ike, another member of the same mercenary group, agrees and advises them not to dwell on past events. Amidst the escalating tension, Dre stresses the urgent need for a mage for his mission, expressing concern about where they can find one. He turns to Kithel, asking if she's willing to locate a mage, but Kithel turns her head around, seemingly ignoring his request. Suddenly, Dre's phone rings, and he abruptly attends the call, stating it's been a while, Jenny. On the other hand, Jenny acknowledges that it's been a while and says she called him to ask if he needs a mage. He abruptly concurs, adding that he needs two, but Jenny asserts that she can only introduce one. Dre becomes a little worried to hear it, but Jenny assures him that this mage will be better than two mages in all regards. She guarantees this, emphasizing that this one is exceptional compared to other mages she's encountered. In contrast, Lennox gets the Vipers and heads back home, contemplating that he must prepare now. The next day, Lennox brings fresh food and vegetables to maintain his diet. After that, he sits in his cross-legged posture to start his meditation. He employs the barrier technique, which needs to draw a magic circle and progress with an elaborate ceremony. However, just concentrating hard enough can put the magic into space itself. This enables him to draw a protective shape around his room and imbue it with security magic on the shape's surface without physically delineating the magical structure. Lennox establishes a security measure within the barrier, ensuring that if someone breaches it, they will be struck by 14 consecutive lightning bolts. Additionally, he implements a gravity bind maneuver at the entrance for added defense. He contemplates that he can't do so much since he was staying in a hotel, but he can prepare adequately now that he has got a house, and with that, he finished the first step of preparation. Suddenly, he receives a call from Jenny, who summons him to her office. Lennox concurs, stating that he doesn't have any plans for the afternoon, and after ending the call, he plans to head over to her. He considers it convenient to have a cell phone and then check the updates about current events in the Balkan. He comes across various highlights reporting that the explosion at the Charlotte factory has caused problems with releasing a new product. The incident occurred at Charlotte Corporation's second production facility in District 42, disrupting the new product launch. Residents within a 2-kilometer radius have been instructed to evacuate, but no further damages aside from the factory have been reported. He is surprised to discover that, according to the highlights, the cause of the explosion has been attributed to a gas leak. This revelation leads him to speculate that Charlotte Corporation intends to conceal the incident by framing it as an accident. He wonders if that is how it is when working with corporations, and he finds it immaculate, and the reward is good too. He appreciates that he doesn't have to put too much thought into it. However, he feels uneasy thinking that extra things are outside his control and sight. As he gazes through the window, he contemplates being more vigilant and careful while dealing with businesses and navigating his interactions with Kroken. 2 months after he began working, he met a criminal organization called Pandemonium. Despite his considerable magical abilities, he acknowledges that he isn't adequately equipped to confront a formidable entity like Pandemonium. Recognizing the necessity for additional strategies beyond magic, Lennox resolves that if he aims to survive in such a hazardous environment, he must diversify his methods and skill set. He then gazes at the package from Gun Barrel and retrieves the gun from it, considering it as a second preparation for his secret solo mission, and he is rather excited about it. Later, when Lennox arrives at the bar, Jenny notifies him about a request from the Krimger mercenary office. They seek assistance in reclaiming a building, specifically requiring the support of a mage for firepower. Lennox wonders if the substantial reward is the reason for the request, to which Jenny explains that hiring mages is generally expensive due to the high demand for their services outweighing the available supply. Lennox expresses his surprise, mentioning that he had expected Antirs to be next, and asks Jenny to provide more details about the mission. She elaborates that a messy gang called Scavenger has taken over an office building used for financial consulting, and now they are using the place's power. The company was kicked out without being able to turn off the circuit because they were worried the trade information might all be erased. The consulting company requested the Krimger mercenary group for help, and they have accepted it. The protagonist then ponders if the mercenaries that consulting company hired want to hire him, and he seeks clarification on what fire support entails. Jenny assures that it's nothing complicated and explains that an awesome mage like Van cast magic from behind the mercenaries. While Lennox contemplates the situation, Jenny mentions that alternative job options are available if he's not interested in this particular one. She emphasizes that his story of surviving the encounter with the old crocodile has gained considerable fame in the area, highlighting his reputation as a mage who survived against formidable odds. Jenny expresses her perspective, stating that if she were in his position, she would opt for the Krimger job, reasoning that mercenaries are typically sensitive about money matters and are less likely to deceive or cheat someone out of their rightful payment or anything similar. The protagonist anxiously wonders if things like that often happen, to which Jenny explains that there are more than just a few shitty humans around here, mentioning instances where people resort to extreme violence, like chopping off others' hands and feet after a job is completed. However, Jenny assures him that she can prevent that from happening. That's why someone as competent as her lives off of guaranteeing safety and trust with a bit of a fee from both the client and freelancer. With a sarcastic grin, the protagonist agrees to take on the mission and asks Jenny for the details regarding the date and location. Jenny informs him that it will be in District 53 and scheduled for tomorrow at 5 a.m., mentioning that she will send the specific location details to his phone. The following day, the entire mercenary group eagerly anticipates the arrival of Mage Van. Wyan asks the leader what he thinks about the new mage. Dre responds that apparently it's a skilled lightning mage, adding that Jenny was adamant it had to be 20 million cell even if she dies, so he guesses that he will have to trust her. Kithel expresses amazement upon learning that the mage specializes in lightning magic and anxiously suggests that the leader Van must have dedicated much time to magical research. Dre responds, mentioning that he doesn't possess extensive knowledge about the mage, but assumes that the mage must be skilled given the circumstances. Shortly after, the protagonist arrives at the location calmly, casually eating a burger. His relaxed attitude surprises the others, leaving them wondering if this seemingly casual individual is a mage. Maintaining his guise as Van, Lennox comments that he presumes he's in the correct location. Dre informs him that they've paid 20 million cell to enlist his services, expressing hope that there won't be any conflict or harm between them during the operation. Since the mage is here, Dre then him inside for a final briefing. He initiates a holographic presentation displaying the layout and details of their target building, stating that he will go over it quickly since they have already done this before. Dre briefs that their final goal is normalizing the third floor's power server. According to him, there are 2 routes to the 3rd floor. Armed forces guard the elevator and stairs from 3 branches of Scavenger. Dre assures his team that Scavengers are not tricky opponents, but they consist of mana users, so they cannot let their guard down. He declares that Unit 2 will get into the 3rd floor with Wyan as the leader, remove the ones occupying the power production facility, and check if the server is fine. Unit 3 will come with him and Ike to clear the 1st floor, and Unit 1 will have Kithel as the leader to enter through the 2nd floor window and herd the scavenger bastards to the stairs. After presenting this detailed plan, everyone confirms their understanding and readiness to execute the strategy. Meanwhile, the protagonist contemplates that Dre talks fast, but is very coherent and calm, considering him a born leader. The team leader informs Van that he has to pour in the most attacks initially and then follow Unit 3 as support from behind. With that, Dre concluded the briefing and urged everyone to take their positions and get ready. The mercenary team becomes determined and picks suitable weapons, gearing up for the mission ahead. Lennox contemplates that in a world where one can use mana to reinforce the body, the fact that long and short weapons exist together is not that weird. According to him, everyone in this field knows that there are moments where a miracle like magic is necessary, even with those kinds of methods, and that's why everyone is desperate for a mage. Later, as they besiege the heavily guarded target building, Dre discreetly observes the situation and approaches the protagonist. He expresses his concern that it's improbable, but their rivals might have hired a mage. Dre requests Lennox to inform him if he notices anything unusual or suspicious related to this matter. Lennox concurs, and suddenly his attention is diverted to a wire that is invisible to others. He notices that wire-type material is connected to the security guards stationed at their target building and wonders if it's a visual substitute material made of mana. He discerns that someone is trying to find out how many of them are, but he is confident that he can locate the opponent's mage by following this vision strand. With calculated precision, Lennox seizes the elusive strand, discreetly channeling his mana through this conduit, evading detection by the vigilant enemy security. Simultaneously, the opposing mage, attuned to the nuances of the situation, begins to sense a disturbance. With a sardonic grin, Lennox realizes he has pinpointed the elusive mage. Swiftly deploying his formidable mana prowess, he initiates a devastating assault, disrupting the opponent mage's magical activation. Lennox's mana manipulation triggers a potent rebound effect, seizing the enemy mage by the neck with an overwhelming force. As this force tightens its grip, a torrent of blood gushes forth from the mage, the sheer intensity causing them to lose consciousness and collapse. The unexpected and abrupt outcome leaves the adversaries in a state of confusion, bewildered by the sudden incapacitation of their mage. Sensing the opportune moment, Lennox swiftly communicates with the team leader, relaying critical information about the enemy mage's utilization of detection magic. With a strategic assessment of the situation, Lennox discloses that he detected this magic and launched a successful preemptive strike, rendering the enemy mage incapacitated. He advises the team leader that the present moment offers the best chance to advance and execute their planned action. The team leader, Dre, covertly analyzes the situation and realizes that Lennox is correct. As the security guard's attention is diverted to their mage, he abruptly commands his team to barge in. Before initiating their assault, the Krimger mercenaries execute a strategic maneuver by deploying tear gas shells aimed at their rival faction, the Scavengers. This sudden and unexpected move catches the Scavengers off guard, creating a momentary disarray among their adversaries. Leveraging this moment of surprise and confusion, the Krimger mercenaries swiftly launch their ambush on the targeted building, capitalizing on the chaos caused by the tear gas to gain a tactical advantage in their attack. Amid the tumultuous situation, Lennox seizes the opportunity to wield his new Viper Cashade C-107, eager to assess its potential effects. As he ingests the substance, he is immediately struck by its remarkable impact. A sense of amazement washes over him as he experiences the astonishing results firsthand. Almost instantly, his body responds with newfound vigor, emanating an aura teeming with raw mana energy. He recalls the initial directive from the team leader, urging him to fire support in the beginning, so with a newfound energy, he unleashes chain lightning magic. The crackling bolts of light streak through the battleground, swiftly and efficiently dispatching most of their adversaries with their searing effects. Witnessing this extraordinary display of magical prowess, the Krimger mercenaries stand in awe, thoroughly impressed by Lennox's remarkable and devastating capabilities in wielding such potent magic. His prowess empowers his mercenary team, and they manage to get the upper hand on the Scavengers by breaking their formation. Working together as a cohesive unit, they ruthlessly eliminate any obstacle. The team leader takes swift action, using a firearm to eliminate a threatening adversary. Simultaneously, Wyan expertly evades an incoming attack and retaliates by striking his assailant's head with precision using his sharp baton. Amidst the chaos, a delinquent aims at Wyan from a vantage point on the roof. However, Kithel, the sharpshooter, nullifies his attempt with her sniper shot, sternly questioning the audacity of targeting their youngest member. Her astonishment mounts as a substantial contingent of delinquents spills out from the building, intent on launching a ferocious assault against the team leader. Reacting swiftly, she issues an urgent directive to her fellow mercenaries, rallying them to shield and protect their leader from the impending onslaught. In a synchronized response to her command, the mercenaries abruptly halt their advance, forming a protective barrier around the leader just in the nick of time. The team leader then commands them to employ the good all-shell method, and they abruptly heed his command by hurling their shields at their adversaries. This sudden and unexpected maneuver takes the opponents aback. The shields collide with and disorient the assailants. However, another batch of opponents' mercenaries soon teams out of the building, and Dre commands his underlings to overpower them. As the Krimiger mercenaries get into action, Dre spots a commanding figure among the opponents and senses something peculiar about him. Amid this chaos, that man abruptly goes missing from his sight and swiftly lunges to harm the Krimiger group Mage Van, aiming to kill him to turn the tables on this fight. However, the protagonist remains unfazed, swiftly retrieves his gun, and shoots the assassin. Despite the assailant wearing a bulletproof jacket, a single shot renders the attacker unconscious. Lennox commends that it withstood the 3 shooting assist magic, aim assist, outburst acceleration, and shock reinforcement that he imbued in a flash, which is a feat. The team leader rushes toward Lennox, wondering about his well-being. Lennox assures him that he is all right and asserts that he can protect himself, so there is no need to worry about him. Dre concurs and contemplates that the shooting itself was expected, but the talent and speed with which Mage Van drew the revolver and pulled the trigger was something even he couldn't emulate. Ike informs the team leader that the entrance is clear, so Dake promptly commands them to head inside. Under the supervision of Kithel, Unit 1 swiftly gets into action, barges into the first floor through the window, and starts the cover fire so that Unit 2 can come up. They effectively prevent their adversaries from mounting a counteroffensive with a barrage of sustained gunfire. Meanwhile, Kithel directs Unit 2 to establish its position, ensuring strategic coordination and synchronization between the units for a cohesive and tactical approach to the operation. Wyan, leading Unit 2, steps on Kithel's shoulder and swiftly lunges with his team to clear the rooftop. Simultaneously, Unit 3 efficiently enters and rapidly secures the first floor, successfully implementing its strategy precisely. Dre communicates with Kithel via walkie-talkie, conveying the cleared status of the first floor, and asks her to report on the second floor situation. Responding from their concealed position behind a cabinet, Kithel discreetly informs the team leader that they are still at a standoff, asserting that it's a bit difficult right now to talk. Dre is bewildered by her response, and suddenly, the sound of a bang intensifies his worries. He anxiously asks her what happened. A prolonged silence heightens the team's apprehension and worries regarding the safety of Unit 2. After a while, she apologized to the team leader, stating that the last guy was hiding like an eel, which took a while. Following this update, Dre takes decisive action by directing Units 1 and 3 to focus on securing the third floor. Leveraging Lennox's magical abilities and the combined efforts of the team members, they engage in a dynamic and action-packed operation to clear the third floor, employing various strategies and skills to accomplish their objective. After taking control over the third floor, the team leader contemplates that Mage Van has helped them tremendously, considering that even before entering the building, he took care of 10% of the scavenger forces. Kithel approaches the team leader, pondering whether they can hire that mage, but Dre informs her that they can't recruit him due to financial constraints. Kithel suggests an alternative approach, urging the team leader to invest the money he has invested into some useless noobs into him instead, emphasizing that Mage Van does the job of 4 people. She stresses the potential ease and speed at which their tasks could be accomplished with someone of Lennox's abilities, envisioning their office gaining widespread recognition and generating significant revenue. However, Dre doesn't pay much attention to her, as he is sure other team members have thought the same. To continue with the rest of the plan, Dre then contacts Wyan, informing him that the third floor is cleared and the rest of the forces are all taken care of. He mentions they are heading for the rooftop now and asks him how the situation is. The leader hears an unusual commotion and a trembling voice of Wyan calling him captain. Dre anxiously calls Wyan out, but no response mounts his tension, and he informs the rest of the team that Unit 2 seems to be in trouble, prompting them to rush immediately toward the rooftop. While everyone swiftly lunges toward the rooftop, the protagonist finds it hard to ascend the stairs, experiencing difficulty in keeping pace with the rest of the team. Upon finally reaching the rooftop, a shocking sight unfolds before them. The entire members of Unit 2 are severely injured and incapacitated, lying motionless in a state of distress. This unexpected and distressing scene leaves the team stunned and deeply concerned for the well-being of their comrades. Dre urges his active members to feed regeneration potions to all the injured. As he pours the tonic on the wounds, he contemplates that it's expensive but considers it nothing compared to his team's lives. Amid this urgent care, Wyan apologizes to the team leader for his perceived failure in clearing the rooftop. However, Dre swiftly dismisses Wyan's self-doubt, reassuring him that he performed admirably. Meanwhile, Lennox carefully analyzes the situation, pondering the circumstances surrounding the serious injuries sustained by everyone in Unit 2, including Wyan, yet miraculously avoiding immediate fatalities. He recognizes the improbability of such survival unless they had undergone rigorous and thorough training, so he wonders why an individual with such exceptional skills would perpetrate this act and then hastily flee the scene. After contemplating for a while, he steps ahead, claiming that the perpetrator is still in their vicinity, which catches everyone's attention. Taken aback by his revelation, Dre requests Mage Van to take care of Wyan, then commands his underlings to move the injured while the rest stay on guard. Soon, they act upon his command, and Dre vehemently demands the perpetrator's whereabouts. The perpetrator, sitting on a pole of another building, sarcastically remarks that he did expect some guests, but not this early. Dre abruptly brandishes his gun at that delinquent, expressing outrage at the audacity of injuring his team members and callously watching them suffer. The perpetrator ponders if they know how much money went into this plan, revealing that all the three branches of Scavenger got together to scrape up cash. They don't have this. They had to take over a server that could connect to a network that took care of District 53's taxes and had to pay tens of people involved to get here. Dre assets that they all are out of mind and ponders if the plan to pocket the reserve money of the Balkan city government. The perpetrator sarcastically reveals that they don't need to go to the city government building because the district office manages hundreds of millions of sell. According to him, if they pick an excellent power production facility to destabilize the power in District 53, then network security will indeed be lost. Dre asserts that he doesn't care what scavengers have done or how. However, it somehow infuriates Jansen, and he urges that he didn't start this to stop here. He then grasps a crimson pill out of his cloak, catching the team leader off guard, and wonders if it's something explosive. In a shocking turn of events, he consumes that suspicious pill, and with a sarcastic grin filled with an unsettling sense of bloodlust, he leaps off the tower. This sudden act leaves everyone stunned and bewildered by the perpetrator's enigmatic behavior, and they react swiftly by unleashing a barrage of gunfire to prevent his movement. However, to their astonishment, these efforts seem futile as the seemingly malevolent individual remains unfazed and unaffected by the gunfire. A shocking transformation unfolds before their eyes as Jansen's countenance undergoes a dreadful change, morphing into a monstrous visage. Vicious black mana emanates from him, signaling an ominous and formidable shift in his demeanor. The sudden transformation into this monstrous form instills fear and disbelief among the team, confronting them with an unexpected and threatening adversary they had not anticipated. The squad attacks him with thousands of gunshots, but each proves futile, and the monstrous individual swiftly unleashes an attack on Krimiger team member Jansen. Amid the chaos, the monstrous being lifts the gravely wounded mercenary and asks the onlookers if they are curious about why he spared the guys who came here first. He then takes out the heart of that mercenary, revealing it's because his power necessitates a living being as a fuel source, which sends shivers down their spine. Meanwhile, Lennox remains composed, recognizing the nature of the power being wielded as black magic, reminiscent of specific skills observed in World 2. Witnessing the monstrous being consumed human flesh, the protagonist assumes that he's probably either something like a vampire or a bloodia, assuming that similar magic systems exist in World 3.0, that is. Acknowledging the inherent dangers and serious consequences associated with such practices, Lennox contemplates the potential serious side effects of utilizing such dark powers. He ponders whether the perpetrator has deliberately chosen to end everything at this moment. Conversely, the monstrous being considers it insufficient, so he swirls his dagger and lunges to attack Delin. However, in a swift and selfless act, a mercenary intervenes, attempting to shield her from the attack. Regrettably, this intervention proves futile as the shield is abruptly shattered by the perpetrator's powerful assault, resulting in the mercenary's demise. With brutal and terrifying ferocity, the monstrous being seizes Delin and begins consuming her flesh. However, displaying a disdainful reaction, he abruptly throws her aside, expressing disappointment in her taste. This horrifying sequence of events leaves the rest of the team horrified and overwhelmed by the sheer brutality of the perpetrator's actions. The team leader, displaying a resolute demeanor, issues a stern command to his subordinates, urging them to act swiftly and fight. The mercenaries act upon his command, demonstrating a unified effort to confront the menacing opponent head-on. However, the demonic being remains unperturbed and soon knocks them out with a decisive move. The perpetrator then attacks the team leader, but miraculously, he manages to evade. However, that powerful blow propels and hurls him aside. Amid the chaos, Kithel takes a shot at the demon, the bullet passing through his head, yet the evil entity remains unharmed. Sternly asserting that such attacks won't kill him, the monster ferociously leaps towards Kithel to assassinate her, which catches Kithel off guard. However, before he can lay a hand on her, the protagonist intervenes by unleashing the thunder-calling maneuver. Lennox assesses that he succeeded in controlling the area of damage and mana usage so that the mercenary and the power production facility won't be harmed. However, he comprehends that if the demon can sense the signs before the lightning strikes, then he can dodge it, and if he does, the next target would be him. As Lennox ponders the potential outcomes and strategies, the perpetrator suddenly shatters the maneuver's effect and leaps to attack him as he already assessed. Despite the abruptness of the demon's attack, Lennox's preparedness becomes evident as his protective shield successfully deflects the assault. Anticipating the move, the protagonist had already augmented the barrier's strength, fortifying it to absorb the attack's impact as it breaks. As the team's barrage of gunfire is directed at the menacing figure, he contemplates that he needs to kill this guy now, even if he receives attacks from the mercenaries, considering that someone who can shoot like that is too dangerous. Lennox swiftly retrieves his mana gun, utilizing the aim assist maneuver. He fires a mana-imbued bullet aimed at the perpetrator, which causes significant impact, and he starts gushing blood. The protagonist contemplates that he had been preparing that ever since he used thunder calling, but he is bewildered that the perpetrator isn't dead yet, so he resolves to finish the job. Lennox concentrates mana in his hand, realizing that his body is so fragile that just one mistake might end in his death. Despite this realization, he acknowledges that he has understood from recent experience that sometimes he must not be afraid of close combat. With resolve, he steps forward and decisively seizes that monster's face, demonstrating his courage to confront him in close quarters. Lennox swiftly executes the bolt maneuver, unleashing a powerful surge of lightning that creates a severe and shocking effect, which catches him off guard. However, the demon attempts to bite his hand and remarks that Mage Van can't kill him with this, while the protagonist maintains his stern grip and challenges to prove him wrong. The protagonist contemplates that if he were an average person, his head would have been ashes by now. He acknowledges that there are monsters that can even catch bullets with their eyelids. Hence, he guesses this isn't too unreasonable. He shoots mana-imbued bullets at the malicious person's eye and head to knock him down. As that demonic being bows in agony from the assault, the mercenaries swiftly intervene and overpower him, preventing any potential threat to the mage. However, despite their efforts, the team finds the monster's resilience challenging to handle, as he continues to display considerable strength. Concerned about their ability to eliminate this formidable adversary, they ask the team leader for guidance, inquiring about the certainty of defeating the monster and contemplating their next course of action. Dre acknowledges the limitations of his magical expertise in accurately assessing the individual's current condition. Recognizing the complexity of the circumstances, he surmises that only one person might be capable of providing insight into the nature of the medicine or method the adversary uses. Seeking guidance, he turns to the mage, inquiring whether there are any possible actions or remedies they can employ to address the situation and possibly counteract the effects of the mysterious medicine used by their opponent. Maintaining his persona as Mage Van, Lennox explains that the phenomenon they're dealing with is related to black magic. He clarifies that the principle behind this particular type of magic isn't inherently complex. However, the individual in question requires significant sacrifices to enhance their stamina and accelerate their recovery rate. Lennox indicates that many practitioners utilize human flesh or blood as energy sources for their spells. However, when these resources prove insufficient, they lose rationality and control over their actions. Lennox reflects on the unstable mental state of the monster he confronted, noting that the adversary wasn't coherent during their fight. He surmises that if the perpetrator doesn't consistently consume human flesh and blood, his capacity for rational thinking and decision-making significantly deteriorates. This realization leads Lennox to understand why the adversary left numerous individuals alive, as it was likely a deliberate action to ensure a continuous source of sustenance. Black magic is infamous for having more disadvantages than advantages. Only a few mages specialize in it. Naturally, only a few people have detailed information about black magic that is valid for Krimger members. Lennox discerns that there was no weak point to be seen right after the adversary took the pill, but it's different now that he has taken many hits. He then grasps the monster's shoulder and sternly urges that he will pull all of the black magic power out of his body. Lennox unleashes his mana to scratch the dark forces, and as a result, the monster reverts to its former self as an older adversary. After successfully purging the dark forces from his body, Lennox commands the mercenaries to execute the now reverted older adversary, which bewilders them. Later that evening, as the clearance operation initiates, Lennox, standing aside with that dark mana in his hand, wonders what he should do with it. Usually, it's impossible to hold on to mana for a long time, so there are special containers for them. The protagonist contemplates that he can't make one immediately or obtain it somehow, so he releases that dark mana into the air. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to him, Wyan, the injured mercenary sitting there, commends his work and asks the mage if he is a genius or something. Wyan acknowledges the protagonist's remarkable manipulation of mana, mentioning that from his vantage point, he could observe the precision and control exhibited by the mage, unlike anything he's ever witnessed. He admits that seeing the mage's mastery over mana has made him aware of the limitations of his own mana abilities, feeling inadequate in comparison. Conversely, Lennox is surprised by Wyan's observation, pondering how Wyan could witness his manipulation of mana from such a distance when no one else in their vicinity seemed to notice or comprehend what he was doing. He contemplates that if Wyan is telling the truth, he was born with high mana sensitivity, and instead of combat, his talent may lie in controlling mana. Wyan then remarks that he has seen many mages, but he has never seen one control mana as well as Mage Van. With a newfound determination, he asks the protagonist if he mimicked that technique, would he be that stronger? Lennox then ponders if he wants to become a mage, to which Wyan responds that he isn't sure, as he used to think being a mercenary was enough, but he doesn't know anymore. Lennox realizes what he wants, as he is also struggling to survive each day. However, he tries to adjust because he is an outsider, so he deliberates not to give any false hope to Wyan. Lennox places a reassuring hand on the mercenary's shoulder, acknowledging Dre Krimger's qualities as a commendable leader. He steps aside, expressing his belief that Dre can give better advice than he can, and asserts that building his own business isn't easy. Furthermore, Lennox advises the mercenary that if he determines what path to pursue for himself, he should consider seeking advice from Jenny. After a while, team leader Dre approaches him and slights bows to thank him for his assistance. The protagonist expresses regret regarding the loss of lives during the operation, to which Dre acknowledges the unfortunate outcome, stating that such casualties are unavoidable in their line of work. Lennox then requests the team leader to take blood from that monster's corpse and send it to Jenny. Dre concurs and hands Mage Van his business card, expressing how impressed he was by Lennox's performance and hoping for future collaborations. Lennox takes the card, stating that he will get going if possible. He then turned around to leave, contemplating that Dre Krimger was a talented mercenary and businessman, so staying in touch with him wouldn't be a bad idea. As he leaves, Kithel anxiously asserts to the team leader that he should have asked to recruit that mage, prompting the leader to burst into laughter. In response, Dre wonders if she is still thinking about that ever after seeing his lightning and adds that Mage Van is good enough for the lightning-type magic tower to want him. He wonders who can hire him, remarking that he's too talented for anyone to monopolize. Kithel then asks if he thinks it's a shame, wondering where they will ever see another mage like him, and where's the guarantee that the next time they meet him, they won't be enemies instead. In response to Kithel's concerns, Dre suggests that their only option is to hope for luck, indicating the unpredictability of future circumstances and relying on fortunate outcomes in their dealings with Lennox. The next day, the protagonist arrives at the bar as Mage Van, and as he steps in, Dylan greets him, referring to him as his partner. Nevertheless, Lennox remains somewhat distant and coldly ponders who says they are partner, while the masked guy tries to be friendly, asserting him not to be like that as he wants to befriend a famous person. When the protagonist asks him about famous, Dylan begins explaining about Jenny's excitement regarding Van's performance. However, before he can finish, Jenny swiftly interrupts by smacking his head with the menu card, causing him to stumble and fall to the ground. She then addresses Van, reassuring him not to pay attention to Dylan's foolishness, and asks about his experience working with Krimger. He responds that it was easy compared to that monster Kroken, and it wasn't hard fighting the scavenger higher-ups either. Jenny then asks whether that perpetrator was a retired soldier, and if he was from District 51, then his skill level's pretty predictable. Dylan intervenes, asserting that not all scavenger guys are weak, many underestimated them and died. Lennox then asks if he means the chief executives are strong. Jenny concurs, stating that there are many deviations between the higher-ups, especially District 20 scavenger higher-ups. She emphasizes that Van should avoid getting involved with them, and he concurs, assuring that he will keep that in mind. Jenny then reveals that he has become famous for this recent job, mentioning an increased influx of customer requests for the Lightning Mage. She handed him a diary, informing him that she had jolted the requests that recently came in so he could pick one he liked. With a disgusted face, she hands him the blood sample of that monstrous being. The protagonist is taken aback to see the diary full of requests for assistance, and Jenny remarks that it means many people need a skilled mage. She then expresses her desire to work together for a long time and assures that she'll give him discounts on the fees she charges. Dylan anxiously intervenes, voicing his concern about favoritism. Nonetheless, Jenny swiftly stops him with a shushing gesture, placing a finger gently on his lips, and doesn't pay much attention to him. Meanwhile, the bartender presents an expensive drink to the protagonist as a compliment, and Lennox appreciates that gesture of goodwill. However, when Dylan orders the same for him, Jenny sarcastically demands an exorbitant sum of 100,000 sel to have that drink. Later, back at his home, he finds himself vomiting in the bathroom. He wipes his face, considering that his insides are a mess, and he seems exhausted. He contemplates that he's left with no alternative but to rid himself of the alcohol, believing it's the best course of action to reduce the potential side effects caused by Viper. After a while, he sits beside his bed and acknowledges that his body is fragile, and he wants to rest but is reminded of the diary given by Jenny. He reflects on Jenny's words that the quest's dates overlap, so if he chooses one, she must reject all the others, suggesting he choose quickly. Consequently, he initiates evaluating the requests and discovers a diverse array. Among the entries, he notices several from mercenary offices, experimental subject testing at laboratories, and intriguingly, even a request from the scavenger group. Lennox finds it crazy and wonders if they don't care that he worked for their opponents. However, he deliberates that Jenny couldn't have been aware of his past affiliations. She must have kept it here on purpose. After assessing the requests, he excludes the recommendations from individuals, mercenary offices, and gangs. He also excludes ones with near deadlines and wonders what's left. A request from a pharmaceutical company, Amnak, catches his attention. He accesses a site on his phone, which he visits often lately, an online auction site run by the city government. Out of all the items listed, he has been watching Starina Pharma's first-class miracle drug, Stimonia, worth 100 million sell. It's close to an industrial product and only perks one up a bit. However, he is in no condition to be picky. He is desperate for a ray of hope that can heal this penalty-ridden body. He takes a deep sigh and decides to take Amnak's quest, acknowledging that he might not get the miracle drug. Still, he might get a hint that would help him solve the sleeping pill problem. He turns off the light and lays on his bed with all his attention on the phone, reading an article headline detailing the forthcoming visit of Sovereign Dominion Fileman's delegation to Balkan. A week later, as a result of promptly accepting Amnak's request, Lennox finds himself engaged in pursuing wanted criminals, a task designed to assess the magical prowess of the supporting sniper. With a resolute demeanor, Lennox strides forward, his revolver in hand, tailing a silenced fugitive. Before long, he employs the aim assist technique, channeling mana into his bullet and skillfully striking the criminal's leg. The criminal fumbles on the road, and the protagonist sternly approaches him, considering that it works well. Approaching the subdued figure, he holds his firearm with confidence, considering it a helpful instrument until he achieves the desired pinnacle of magical prowess, and then shoots that criminal. He then walks ahead, reflecting that there are limits. Even if he uses these spells, it helps him hit faster with more force. However, he considers that if he can learn magic spells that are inherently for support, he can do better in battle. Later, he arrives at the bar to inform what quest he has finalized to assist, but before he can utter a word, Jenny astutely senses his choice for Amnak and urges him to swiftly hand it over, emphasizing that there is no time. Perplexed by her awareness, Lennox hands her the file and wonders how she knew about it, to which Jenny calmly reminds him that it's the sole available quest that hasn't expired as of that day, and also that he seemed interested in medicine. She urges him to wait a minute, revealing that someone from Amnak will be here, and turns around to contact that pharmaceutical company. Meanwhile, a man approaches the protagonist, pondering if he is Jenny's new customer. When Lennox wonders how that person knows him, the man remarks that Van is gaining attention as a renowned lightning mage, and there's talk circulating about him being a bounty hunter fixated on cash rewards. Reflecting that he has captured numerous wanted criminals for monetary gain, the protagonist acknowledges that it makes sense for them to say that. The man clarifies that he doesn't mean it negatively and highlights that within the city, individuals typically end up with a bounty on their heads for two reasons. Either they're inconsequential individuals whom no one would bother about if they disappeared, or they're powerful enough not to worry about having a reward placed on them. Lennox considers these contrasting ends of a spectrum and becomes curious about the man's identity. The man unexpectedly hurls his business card towards him. It catches the protagonist off guard for a while, but he manages to catch it. Observing Lennox's swift reaction, the man expresses amazement at his agility and remarks that he hadn't anticipated encountering someone with extraordinary abilities. He introduces himself as Sebastian and reveals he undertakes similar work to Jenny's. Lennox studies Sebastian's card and ponders that he doesn't sense any aura or mana, speculating if Sebastian specializes in psychological abilities. Lennox asks if Sebastian is a telekinesis user, to which Sebastian agrees, asserting that it should be apparent, suggesting he has already demonstrated this ability to Lennox. He smiles, adding that it must be confirmed as he claims to have shown it already. Sebastian grabs a malt bottle, stating that it must be true that he went somewhere foreign to train before coming here. He gently tosses that bottle towards Jenny, who remarks that she initially thought Sebastian was here for a drink and asks why he is approaching her client, asserting that it will not be fun for long if he keeps this up. Sebastian sarcastically tells Jenny not to be overly upset. acknowledging that he did give Lennox his business card, but he is here to provide her with something. As he places his hand on a bag, Jenny anxiously wonders what it is. She is taken aback to find its conscription, as she thought there were over 2 months left until the Filenum delegation visits, and sternly wonders how she is getting this already. Sebastian acknowledges that it sure is rare that it's this early and mentions the rumors that a city council member is pushing this agenda hard. Meanwhile, Lennox reflects that he heard about this on the news yesterday when the city government issued a call-up order to all independent businesses. He wonders if it was because the Filenum delegation was expected to visit, and considering the looks on their faces, he realizes it must be a big deal. While leaving, Sebastian greets the protagonist, telling him to give him a call whenever he feels like talking about different types of jobs. As they shake hands, he assures the protagonist that he will provide him with awards different from those that Jenny gives him. Later, as he departs, Jenny acknowledges that Sebastian is good with his words when dealing with rich people and business owners, suggesting his visit if he wants to take on individual requests. Lennox wonders if she won't stop him, to which Jenny retorts whether the customer listens to a business owner's pleas not to leave them. Soon, a man arrives there, pondering if it's Jenny's bar, which catches their attention, and Jenny tells that man to follow them. She takes them to a separate room for discussion and introduces herself and Van to that person. The man reciprocates